We've got a new warning tonight about those COVID tests that the government has been sending out. This past week, much of the U.S. was hit with winter storms, and there's concern that the tests might not work. Most at-home COVID-19 kits recommend storing the tests above 35 degrees. The liquid substance inside the cartridge is susceptible to freezing, and if that happens, the accuracy of the results can decrease. Experts recommend bringing your tests inside as soon as they're delivered. And if a test is left in a mailbox overnight during freezing temperatures, it's advised you get another one. The U.S. Postal Service is currently delivering 1 billion at-home test kits provided by the federal government. Hundreds of people marched across New York City today. The group is protesting a vaccine mandate that goes into effect on Friday.
Rip up those cards and be proud.
People employed by New York City could be fired if they don't prove that they're vaccinated. The group marched across the Brooklyn Bridge to City Hall, and then some people ripped up their vaccination cards as a sign of solidarity. Semi-truck drivers are continuing their freedom convoy. They're demanding an end to COVID restrictions and mandates all across the country. Fox's Kelly O'Grady has more on how their protest is causing chaos across Canada.
A state of emergency declared in Canada's capital as hundreds of truckers, part of the Freedom Convoy, remain there protesting vaccine mandates and COVID restrictions. The convoy began as a movement against vaccine requirements for cross-border truckers, but they're now calling for an end to all COVID restrictions. Police in Ottawa cracking down, threatening arrest for anyone that brings fuel or other supplies to demonstrators.
It's finally hit people. This stuff's all baloney. It's all about a power struggle. It has nothing to do with public health.
All this as GoFundMe faces criticism for shutting down a fundraising page for the convoy, returning more than $10 million to donors. The move by GoFundMe drawing major backlash, with critics pointing out that the site allowed donations to the CHOP movement in Seattle, which saw multiple instances of violence.
I sent a letter to the Federal Trade Commission asking that the FTC open an investigation into GoFundMe into whether they've committed deceptive trade practices.
Meanwhile, Facebook last week shutting down a page used by the American Trucking Convoy. The People's Convoy isn't letting that stop them, continuing with their plans to make their way from California to Washington, D.C., beginning early next month.
In no way is this a right-wing issue or a left-wing issue. This is not anti-vax. This is about your rights as a human being, and then, of course, as an American, your constitutional rights.
The People's Convoy plans to remain in Washington until federal and state governments remove mandates across the country. In Gasteiz, California, Kelly O'Grady, Fox 13 News.
Australia just announced plans to relax its pandemic restrictions later this month. The government says all vaccinated tourists and business travelers will be welcome starting 2 weeks from today. Visitors will be required to provide proof of vaccination. The tourist industry has been pushing the government to allow tourists back in this final month of the summer travel season in Australia. Well, new tonight, the number of Omicron cases continues to decline.
As numbers dip down, more states are lifting mask mandates. Fox's Jonathan Seri has more on the latest changes.
It's a sign life could be getting back to normal. Today, more states are setting timelines for the end of classroom mask mandate. Delaware's school mask rule will expire March 31st, while in New Jersey, students and school officials can be unmasked beginning early next month. Though Governor Phil Murphy cautions the virus still poses a threat.
Every time you think you've got this thing figured out, it humbles you. But we are confident that 4 weeks from now, we will be able to be at the point with regard to the statewide school mask mandate.
The decision to lift mask rules comes as the Omicron surge eases its grip on the country. This past week, every state reported a lower number of daily COVID cases than the previous week. Nationwide, new infections were down about 42%. Hospitalizations are also on the decline, but some medical facilities in the South are still seeing reduced capacity in critical care units.
Clearly, we're moving in the right direction, but we're moving very, very slowly.
Meanwhile, the CDC is considering extending the time between certain COVID vaccine doses due to the risk of a rare type of heart inflammation. The proposed changes apply to Pfizer's and Moderna's formulas and would delay the second shot to 8 weeks.
The vaccine is not designed for 3 weeks. That's why you're seeing that rare heart complication, in my opinion, and it is very rare.
The CDC says extending the time in between doses also appears to result in a higher antibody response. In Atlanta, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
We've got a new warning tonight about those COVID tests that the government has been sending out. This past week, much of the U.S. was hit with winter storms, and there's concern that the tests might not work. Most at-home COVID-19 kits recommend storing the tests above 35 degrees. The liquid substance inside the cartridge is susceptible to freezing, and if that happens, the accuracy of the results can decrease. Experts recommend bringing your tests inside as soon as they're delivered. And if a test is left in a mailbox overnight during freezing temperatures, it's advised you get another one. The U.S. Postal Service is currently delivering 1 billion at-home test kits provided by the federal government.